Thanks, Danica. And they always say hire people that are smarter and better than you, and thanks for showing me up, Danica. It's been great. From my point of view, it's great to be at this conference, and thanks to Danica and Evie for the opportunity. Let's be honest, this is a copper conference. 5 out of 8 of these presentations have been copper. No more secret handshakes, boys. No more hiding in the shadows. We're out there, we're loud and proud, we're talking about copper. It has been an interesting couple of years in the market for us, for us at Castile. The important message that we need to get out to people is that yes, we are producing downstream critical and precious minerals. We are copper and gold, cobalt and magnetite, all coming from one mine, which is in the Northern Territory, and it's an IOCG, which are typically and historically some of the richest mines in the world. So our project has an NPV of 450 mil on historic prices, much lower than where they are now, and I'll talk a bit about that. Importantly, we are downstream. This is our big differentiator. We'll be producing copper cathode in Australia, obviously gold doré, which will go to the mint, cobalt sulfate in Australia, and a 96.5% magnetite product, which can be used in coal cleansing. All produced in Australia, and we'll see why that leads into my the second message I want to get across. We're getting enormous support from federal and state governments, and that'll be culminated in Minister Madeleine King, who's the Minister for Resources, as you would know, and also Northern Australia, coming out to site to see what we are doing and to see how we are doing it. Just quickly on the deposit itself, extremely high grade. It speaks for itself, 30 metres at an ounce, 7 metres at 4 ounces per tonne of gold. And in the copper, just a couple down there, 21 metres at 7% and 40 metres at 4%, whatever you like. These are extremely typical of grades in the Northern Territory, in around Tennant Creek. Extremely high grade, and it's what allows us to make so much money out of this thing. Obviously, the IRR is around 46%, and a little higher when you start looking at some of the price moves. I'm not for a moment saying that I think both gold and copper will move up together in this relationship. It's quite a unique time in history, as everyone knows. We love gold, we absolutely love it, but we're getting financed because of the fact that we're going to be producing downstream copper, cobalt, and the magnetite. Do not get me wrong, I love gold. So, actually I should have gone back there, but the news that Danica was talking about was that we've just received major project status from the Northern Territory Government, which basically opens the vault to this funding that our panellists were talking about earlier. And it seems they were talking our story, the panellists, about how you get things funded and what are the possibilities once you have them funded. And that's what I want to get across today. So that should be the video. Doesn't look like it's worked. I'll press that. Maybe it has. Okay, so I'll just quickly cover off a just 90-second video on the project itself and then how we're going to fund it and then where we're taking it. So we're right in the middle of the Northern Territory. We've got 1,000 square kilometres of tenements, I should say. We've drilled, we've done 6 programs historically and come up with 4 discoveries, but the flagship project that you've just seen up there is the Rover 1 project, which some people in the crowd may know came out of Westgold. It's as I say, extremely high grade, very typical of IOCG deposits in the area. We've done 15 kilometres of drilling on it. Previous owners have done 75 kilometres. It's well drilled out, we know the deposit very well. Plenty more opportunity at depth and to the east. And as I say, we'll be doing about 500,000 tonnes per annum of mining and processing. And I'll give you a little bit of an idea of what we produce. But again, we have organised and specifically done this project for profitability. How much money can we make out of this? Yes, how big can we make it eventually, and what's the expansion potential, but how much money can we make out of it? We are determined to get every single dollar out of every single tonne that we mine, and hence that prompted the downstream processing, which has now put us in such a great position with the government. Makes great money, 46% IRR. At current prices, that IRR is about 57%, and the NPV is about 640 million, just to give you an idea of the leverage. Again, the key is downstream processing, oxidation. Extremely amenable to this form of processing. It only spends 60 minutes in the autoclave, and that is that downstream processing that a couple of the other copper guys are going to be going down that pathway as well. So this is the proposed plant layout, quite simple, 500,000 tonnes per annum, completely modular, and obviously we'll be picking up any gravity gold, any loose gold, but again, 93% recovery in gold, about 96% in copper, and producing these great products. So we only mine for the copper and the gold, but the cobalt and the magnetite come along as a result of it being an iron oxide copper gold. So on an annual basis, we do about 225 million in revenue. That's now about 270, 280 current prices. 30,000 ounces of gold, 7,000 tonnes of copper, 300 tonnes only of cobalt, and 75,000 tonnes of magnetite. So that's us, and we are finding, as I said, we originally did this thinking that there'd be a great inverse relationship between the copper and the gold, but they're both running at the moment, so good for us. Right, that sort of leads me to where there was quite a few questions on the panel. How do you fund these things? Historically, when I've been involved in situations like this, it's like, who needs your product? And we're looking for a big brother. We're looking for that partner that will come in, as well as I'm more or less taking government funding here for granted, in that there's the note $5 billion is the critical minerals facility there. That 440 million in infrastructure funding is going to put spend about 80 to 100 million in putting infrastructure in Tennant Creek that we could hopefully lob our plant on top of, which takes 60 to 70 off of our capex requirement. So these critical minerals funds, as I said, Madeline King will be coming out to site. She loves what we're doing because we are basically spruiking the same story that they're spruiking. Produce it here in Australia, we're producing cathode in Australia, and they'll support us as a result. So from our point of view, it makes it pretty simple to now go, right, well, who else do we need? And I said, so putting the government funding aside, and you've seen the Arafura example, and they've received 800 million in government funding through NAIF, through the Critical Minerals Facility, and through the EFA, on a project that runs at about mid-teens as an IRR. So it is about pushing this downstream processing capability in Australia, and they've got 1.4 billion to raise, and the government's handed them 800 million. Gina Reinhardt's involved in that one. She's also involved in Liontown. They've got 230 million. So hopefully, if I can't convince Gina to adopt me, we'll have to go through the process ourselves. So we are very lucky in that regard. So clearly the link now is, right, who's that big partner? Historically, I've brought in large partners. It's what we do. And the massive opportunity is that there is now 30,000 tonnes of, 30 million tonnes of gold and copper sitting in Tennant Creek, which is stranded. So if we can open up the pathway, and obviously I can't talk about other companies and their assets, but if we can open up the pathway, it provides an enormous opportunity up there for the entire region. And obviously the fact that we are the only company up there with reserves, we are the ones that can start the whole process. So that's where I'm seeing us fit in, and obviously we'd like to bring a large investor-style brother along the way, and we're obviously working on that now. Government's put their hand up. Madeline King's coming out to site, so I did say to her, I hope that she can bring a checkbook. But thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm happy to have a cut afterwards if you're still around.